Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let's continue with the chapter Control and Coordination. In this session, we are going to study about the basic cells which are constituting the nervous system and helping in this particular process. In the previous session, we had already studied that how this control and coordination is a very important process. If this control and coordination is not there, the various functions will take in a very abrupt manner in our body. And if that abrupt manner is established in a living system, there is no stability of life also. And this is the reason why this control and coordination is so important. All the functions, they are equally important, and they should not be hindered, or they should not be actually stopped in any case, isn't it? And if that happens, there is going to arise a big problem and will affect our survival. So all these processes, the life processes, they are taking place in a very controlled and a coordinated manner, because each and every function has to take place in a limited way. In the previous session, we came to know that how this control and coordination is basically taking place. It is a stimulus in our surrounding, or a change in our surrounding to which we are giving a particular response. And this is of course a very important characteristic feature of a living thing or a living organism. Now, how this point or how this response is given? So that is possible because of the developed tissues in our body, a developed system in our body. We explained in the previous session that how the process is actually occurring. It is through two systems in the human being or in the higher organisms. So what those two systems were? It was a nervous system and it was a hormonal system. So these two particular systems, they help in establishing a stability and a controlled and coordinated function of the body. So now we explained the basic components and the basic functions of the nervous system, right? This nervous system, as we are saying it is a system, so definitely it must be made up of various type of organs, and the organs, they are made up of tissues. So the special type of tissues which are forming this nervous system is known as nervous tissue. Now tissue, what is this tissue? It is a group of similar type of cells which are working together to perform a particular specific function. So which type of tissue or which type of cell is making this particular nervous tissue or the nervous system? So that system or that particular tissue and the cell is the topic that we are going to discuss in this particular session. So let us start with this particular point. So what is the functional unit of this nervous system? It is a neuron. So neuron is also known as a nerve cell. These nerve cells, they will together form a nervous tissue, and the nervous tissue are arranged in different ways, and they are forming the different type they are forming the nervous system. So how we can define this nerve cell or the neuron? It is a basic structural and functional unit which is constituting the nervous system. So this is how we can define this nerve cell, and these nerve cells are very important. They have to transmit the message from one part of the body to the other part of the body. For what? So as to receive a stimulus. Whatever change is taking place in our surrounding or within the body, that change is going to be observed by the nerve cells. And once it is recognized, the message has to be conveyed to the next cell, and of course all throughout the nervous system or different parts of the nervous system. So what this nerve cell is basically doing here? It is receiving a particular change. It is receiving those particular stimulus. Now how they can receive the stimulus? Anyways, it can take place through any cell of the body. Usually it is associated with receptors which are present in the sense organs. So in the sense organs, what is there? There are the different receptor. You know what are these sense organs? You must be aware, you are studying since long about these sense organs. What are they? Eyes, ears, nose, skin and tongue. So these are the basic 5 sense organs of our body. Why sense organ? Because they are having the sensory cells. These sensory cells are also known as the receptors. They can receive the message, they can receive the stimulus from the surrounding, and this is why they are known as the sense organs. Now they are in direct touch, or they are in direct contact with the nerve cells. Now if we say that they are in direct contact, then it is not that they are just touching each other. They are having a contact with each other. They are just in close, they are having a connection in between them, so that they can receive the particular message. So the neurons, they will receive the message from the from the sensory cells or the receptors. And due to this, what will happen? The internal environment of the nerve cell is going to change. And such change is going to establish a chemical reaction, which is then converted into some electrical signals. Now these electrical signals which are generated here, they are known as electrical impulses, as these signals will flow throughout the neurons and is transferred to the next neuron, then to next neuron, and then throughout the nervous system. So this is how the nerve impulse or the electrical impulse will carry the message from where? From the sensory part of the body to the main center of the nervous system. Now it is the one half of the particular thing. It is just a half part that it has received the message. Now which is the second half? That is the response that you need to give to that particular stimulus. So suppose if it is a let us say the stimulus is let us say touch. So that means what? The receptors for this are basically located in the skin. And of course, let us say stimulus is if it is a touch, let us say it is related to some hot object. If you touch some hot object, then what will happen? A message would be conveyed to the neuron. And this neuron will tell you that how much hot the object is. Let us say, for example, if you are drinking a milk, if your mom is giving you the milk to drink there, then you will check it. If it is very hot, you will immediately throw it out, or immediately you will put it back on the table, or whatever is the situation. Or else you if you have to drink it, it should have a particular temperature, and that you are generally checking it by touching it, and then of course you are blowing some air also so that it can become cool faster, right? So you are touching it, and the message is conveyed to the brain that whether you can drink it or you cannot. You have to make it more cool, or you can drink it in that way itself. So all these actions, whatever response you are giving, you are putting it back immediately, or you are able to hold it for some time, or you are in a situation to drink it properly. So these actions, of course, they are different from each other. So this response what you are giving is the second half of the function here. Once you receive the message, and then you are just taking some action, you are transmitting the message to the brain and then to the target organ. Let us say if you are drinking, you need to use your limbs. So the muscular movement should take place. Which muscles? The one which is associated with your hands or with the forelimbs. So this is how these electrical impulses, they are actually helping us to take the action. So it's very clear that how this important function is taking place here. It is all in a controlled manner. See, and secondly, of course, it is in a coordinated manner. If you need to move your hand, what coordination or what type of control should be there? Control should be so that milk does not spill. It should not come out of the glass. You should hold it properly. So that particular thing, that how you have to make a grip, that is a control. And for that your muscular movement should take in that controlled manner. Now in a coordinated manner, only picking up is not the action. You have to take it till your mouth and then you have to drink it. So further the coordination is between what? Between your facial muscles and your limb muscles or the skeletal muscles of your hands. And then once you drink, what is going to happen? You have to swallow it properly. It's not you are just pouring into the buccal cavity. You should take a proper sip and then you should transfer it to the alimentary canal further. And of course slowly. That is what we call as the control and coordinated manner. What things are coordinated? The muscular movement of your hand, then of your facial muscles, then of your alimentary canal. And then further what will happen? The digestion will begin. So that also comes in the role now. So this is how all the system of the body are taking place in a well maintained manner. For all these purpose, don't you think you need energy also? If you are sick and you're not able to sit properly yourself, then can you imagine that you can hold it from the table and you can drink it properly? You need some help at that time. So the situation is that the things are taking place in a controlled and coordinated manner in a normal functioning body. And this function is basically maintained by the special neurons. Now these neurons, they are the largest cell in the body. You know why this nerve cell is so long? The reason, because it has to coordinate the functions of entire body system or the entire cells of the body. And for this, the all body systems, they should be connected with your brain and immediate actions should be taken, isn't it? And for this reason, that they have to convey or they have to transmit the messages at such a long distances, this is the reason why the nerve cells are so long. And structurally, of course, they are different from the other type of cells. So let us see what are these things. So the neurons, they are very much different from the other type of cells in terms of its cell size, in terms of its cell design, and the various functions also. So let us see that these functional unit of neurons, they are having the basic three parts. What these parts are? They are the cyton, or this cyton is also known as cell body. Beside the cell body, the cyton or the cell body is the central part of the cell. After this, the next part is the dendrites, which are usually the extensions of the cellular membrane. And there is a long thread-like structure, that is axon. You must be knowing the basic structure of the neuron, as you had done in the previous standard also. So all these parts are actually present only in this typical type of a neuron. Let us find out what these particular things means here. So before we just explain this particular thing, just remember one thing. Neurons, they are functioning all the time in the body and at a very rapid rate, at a very fast rate, at a constant manner, and this is the reason they are always in a very active state. They need a very high amount of energy. So they are designed well enough in such to support such type of function. So you remember that how these neurons are, what is the structure? They are having a central region, that is something like this. We can just make a diagram. We will show you further also, but just make it like this. So this is how it is present in our body. There are some extensions and there is a long branch. What is this long branch known as? It is a axon. And these axons are further having some fibrous branches. or thread-like branches. Now out of all this structure, this central part, this central region is what we call as the cyton. So what is the cyton, or what is the cell body? It is a central part in which the nucleus is present, a very prominent nucleus, a well functioning prominent nucleus is present here, which is of course in a very active state. The next is what? There is another, this central part. So the central part is consists of the nucleus, cytoplasm and Nissls granules. So this nucleus is of course controlling it is the brain of the cell actually. You know, as like brain is directing the different functions of our body, similarly inside a cell, a nucleus is controlling all of the functions of the cell. So this nucleus is centrally located, which is of course a very prominent. Then your the cytoplasm is present. The cytoplasm is having different basic materials as is present in different cells, and especially another thing is present here, which is known as Nissls granules. These Nissls granules are so important as they help in maintaining the active state of the cell. See, if the cell has to be very active, then of course it needs the constant supply of energy, it needs constant supply of RNA and proteins, so that the RNA and the ribosomes, so that actively the protein could be synthesized and the messages could be conveyed at a rapid rate. So all these things partly are actually controlled by the Nissls granules. So these granules are the specific feature of a neuron. It is not present in any of the another cell. So further, the membrane is having some minute thread-like extensions, and these thread-like extensions are known as the dendrites. Where these dendrites are present? Over the cyton membrane. What is the main function of the dendrites? These dendrites are the part of the nerve cell which is associated with the sensory cells or the receptors present in the sense organs. So you can see these dendrites here. These dendrites which are present here, you can label it as number 2 now. So these dendrites, as they are in direct contact with the the sensory cells, then what will happen? It is able to receive a message. So it is this part of the nerve cell which actually receives the message. From where? From the other nerve cell, or from any sensory cell, or the receptors, or wherever. So these dendrites are meant for receiving this particular stimulus, and then it is passed on to the cyton. And as it receives the message, it is going to further establish a chemical reaction. This chemical change or chemical reaction will generate an electrical impulse. So now you can see that how much important these dendrites are. The next part is what? It is axon. So axon is a long extension of the cyton membrane. So this long thread-like structure is actually your axon of the nerve cell. So this particular axon is actually carrying the electrical impulse and is transmitting it to the another cell or to the target site. Now that could be the brain, or that could be some effector organ of the body. You remember what is this effector? Effector is that part of the body which is actually responding, where the action is actually taking place. So this action is actually taking place as these axons are able to transmit some of the messages. So these axons, they are meant for conducting the electrical impulse. Now these axons, they are having some endings, branches at its endings, and these small minute branches, they are known as axon endings. and they are actually opening in a gap over there, where this gap is present between the two cells or between the cell and the muscle, a muscle cell, because of course the action is generally taken by the movement of the muscles only. So the gap between these two cells is known as a synapse. So here, let us say if there is another cell over here, then it must be having some of the gap in between, and this gap is known as a synapse. And the synapse is of course important because these electrical impulses which are transmitted here, it will actually stimulate these cells so as to release some of the substances in the gap. Now these substances which are released here are known as the neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters, which is transmitting the message conveyed by the neurons. Hence it is known as a neurotransmitter. So these neurotransmitters, they will establish a new chemical reaction in this new cell and will follow the will convey the, or it will transmit the message in the further part of the system. Now these neurons, let us find out the more details about the same thing now. So these cytons, as you can see, let us see the diagram is exactly here. This central part over here, it is known as the cyton and is having a prominent nucleus. And of course the cytoplasm contain the special granules which we call as the Nissls granules. Now further, these particular cytons, they are extending, or the membrane is forming some of the short extensions, or those extensions, they look like some small fibers or the short fibers, which we are calling as what? As the dendrites. So this dendrite is the next part of a neuron. And what is the longest fiber of the cell is known as? It is known as the axon. So all these things, or these parts of the cell, they are functioning together so as to perform this particular function of transmittance. So you can see the diagram. As we said, this is the central part, that is the cell body or the cyton, right? Now these cyton, they are having the branches, and these branches or these fibers, they are actually very important. As we had already stated also, they are in direct contact with what? They are in direct contact with the certain different receptors or the sensory cells. See, the dendrites, how you can define it? They are the short branches which are arising from the cell membrane of the cyton. What is the function of these dendrites? It is they pick up the nerve impulses from the receptor. Now what this particular point means, let us find it out. So see, these are the fibers here which are present at the cell membrane, and these fibers, they are so much branched, and this type of branching is basically increasing the surface area, or it is allowing these cells to get in more touch with the target tissue, or the tissue from where it has to receive certain messages. So this fibrous nature is therefore having a very important role. Now they are in direct contact with what? With the sensory cells. What these sensory cells are? They are the specific receptors which are present in the sense organs. Now over here, the receptor will actually, see, the receptor is present in the sense organ, and this receptor, whenever it is stimulated by any external change, what will happen? The same change would be actually recognized by the dendrites. The dendrites which are having the contact with these receptors. So they will bring a stimulatory change in these particular dendrites, and then it is going to convey the message to the central part of the body. Now such type of changes, if the change is taking place, definitely there will be some chemical change taking place, isn't it? There will be the change in the molecular movement. A chemical reaction would be established. and then this chemical reaction will be converted into an electrical impulse, and this electrical impulse, it will be transferred to what? It will be transferred to the axon. Now these axons, they are the longest single fiber of the neuron. All other fibers, they are very short, as they are in direct contact with the these sensory parts. Now from there they have to just receive. So there is no need of a long fiber at this site. Where this long fiber is needed? It is needed when the message has to be conveyed to a long distance. So axons, they are the next part which will transmit this particular message or the electrical impulse from which was received initially by the dendrites, then the cyton, and then to the axon. And axon is further in contact with what? With the next cell. So this is how it is going to convey or transmit the message to the next cell. On this next cell, it may be of the nerve itself, of the nervous system itself, or some muscular cell, or some other target part of the body. Now these special fibers, they are actually of two types. The axon is sometimes covered by a special protective layer, and this protective layer is known, it is made up of myelin. Myelin is a sort of a lipid, a complex lipid. So these myelin, they are actually insulating it. They are actually providing protection to the axons. They will not allow the shock. Electrical impulse is generated, so they prevent it from any sort of shock also. So this is how the myelin is actually supporting, or it is providing the protection. Besides this, it also helps in it also supports the transmittance of faster process. The next thing we are saying, it is not necessary that it is always present. So on the basis of the presence of or the absence of this myelin sheath, the axon is of two types, or the nerve cells are of two types. What are they? Myelinated and non-myelinated. The myelinated is the one in which the sheath is present. Non-myelinated is the one in which there is no sheath present. Got it? So in that case, the myelin is absent. You can see this here in the diagram. This particular blue layer over the fiber is actually the sheath, or it is made up of a myelin molecules. Now this particular layer, which is made up of myelin, is not a continuous layer. It is discontinuous. It is non-continuous. Why? How we can say? They are having the joints in between. See, the sheath is there. There is a long fiber over there, and this long fiber, it is having the layer. Now this layer is having for the gap. It is not continuous. It is present in the sections, the definite sections. Now these sections, they are covered by the myelin sheath. So this is how the gaps are present in the this particular layer. So this is how you can see even in the diagram. These oval shaped structures which are shown here, they are supported or they are protected by the myelin sheath. Now this myelin sheath, it is having these gaps in between, and these gaps are known as the node of Ranvier, or simply the Ranvier's node. Now these Ranvier's node, they are actually named after the name of a scientist actually. Now they are actually helping in the transmittance. The transmittance of this electrical impulse is taking place only at these node of Ranvier. See, normally we say that electrical impulse is generated in the cyton, which is actually transmitted through the axon. So it runs through the axon over there and is establishing a change in the axon terminus, and further it is conveying the message. But here, how it is taking place? It is jumping. from Ranvier node to the next node of Ranvier. That means where the sheath is present, the transmittance is not taking place at that point. But of course it is important because this is forming a sort of continuation process. So how the transmittance is taking place? The impulse will jump from a cyton to the first node of Ranvier, then to the second, and then to the third, and so on. So this is how as these impulses has to travel quite a shorter distance, so the process becomes more and more faster. You know where these myelin molecules are present? They are actually present in they are secreted by the special cells, and these cells are known as the Schwann cells. So these Schwann cells are forming the myelin sheath over the axon. Now, whether it is myelinated or non-myelinated, simply the myelinated is one which is having the nodes of Ranvier, whereas non-myelinated, which is not having the nodes of Ranvier, right, or which are lacking the myelin sheath. Now, whether it is myelinated neuron or it is non-myelinated neuron, their ends are branched. The ends are having the branches. That means you can see this here in the diagram. At the end of the axon, there are the fibers present, and these fibers are known as axon terminals, axon terminus, or the axon endings. These endings of the branches are having a little bit solid structures. Now, what happens at this point? You know, the electrical impulse which was generated by the cyton, it is conducted by the axon. Now, how this conduction is taking place in the further part? See, the impulse has come to these particular terminals. Now what? The cell is it is now limited up to here only. How it is conducted to the next cell? Because we already said that the two cells or these cells in the nervous tissue or which are associated with the muscles, they are not touching each other. But of course that means they are having some gap in between. So how the further process is taking place? How the conduction will further actually occur? So basically this message is conducted through the gap. Which gap? Which we call as the synapse. Now the synapse is defined as a gap, or it is a junction between the two nerve cells or one neuron and a muscle fiber. So this particular junction, it is not like it is a very big gap, it is just a very minute gap in between, and of course that minute gap which is separating the two cells is of course relevant. It is making a great sense over here. If there is a gap, see, this gap is known as a synapse. Now these synapses, they are actually receiving the materials which are secreted by the axon endings. We said that electrical impulse was conducted through, it was transmitted through the axon. Now from this axon, what will happen? It is going to release out some it is going to establish a particular reaction over there, and this reaction will result in the secretion of neurotransmitters. Now these neurotransmitters are initially present in the synaptic vesicles, and further these vesicles will help in the release of these neurotransmitters or the chemical substances into the gap. Now these material which are secreted out, they will establish a new change or the new reaction in the next cell. You know, it is not a simple diffusion process by which the neurotransmitter can cross this boundary. It is passing through a particular transport system in the membrane of the nerve cell. Now these channels which are present in the membrane are going to support the transfer of the neurotransmitters in this particular gap. And once it is released here, that is going to be received by the next particular cell. Now in case if it is a let us say if it is a nerve cell, then which part is going to receive the message? It is a dendrite. So the dendrites of new cell or the next cell is going to pick up these particular molecules. Now pick up does not mean that they are going to hold it and they are going to engulf it inside. No, these neurotransmitters will get attached over the membrane of the dendrites and will establish a further chemical change inside the cell. And this chemical change is of course similar to that one happened at the beginning of the beginning of this particular transmittance. Now this chemical change is further it is converted into an electrical impulse in the cyton, and then it is conducted through the next axon or this axon of the next neuron. And similarly at the next axon a similar reaction is going to be established. So this is how these neurotransmitters they help in transmitting the message from one cell to the another, and finally it will reach where? It will reach the brain, that is a control center of course, and from there the new reaction or the new change is going to be established and the message would be conducted by the another nerve, which is of course made up of the nerve cells, and it is transmitted to the another target tissue. So we can actually summarize this conduction with the help of this particular chart. In this chart we have just summarized the steps that how the conduction is taking place. Initially the information is received by the dendrites. Which type of information? A signal, a change or the stimulus which were received by the receptors, and this receptor is giving an information to a dendrite. Now this type of receiving is going to establish a particular chemical reaction. This chemical reaction they get converted into an electrical impulse, and this electrical impulse will travel along the axon. What is the direction here? You can see it begins from the dendrite, then cyton, then axon ending, and then the synapse. And then further again the next dendrite, cyton, axon, and so on. So this is how the impulse is traveling along the neurons. Not a single neuron, but of course it is transmitted to the another neuron also at the synapse. As at the synapse some chemicals are released which are known as neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters they can cross the gap. We are using the term cross here because it is not a simple diffusion. It is transferred through some channels and then it is transported to the next particular cell membrane, and over there it is actually attached and is setting up a new reaction. So further as this thing happens there will be the beginning or the generation of next impulse in the next neuron. So further these neurons they are receiving the message and they are actually establishing different kind of reactions. So depending upon the direction of its impulse transmission, these neurons can be of different types. That means if they are receiving the message from the receptors or directly from the sensory organs of the body, then these are known as the sensory neurons, and it may also be known as the receptor neuron. The another one is the one which is known as the motor neuron. These are also known as the effector neurons. You know why? Because in this case these are actually they are communicating between the brain and the target tissue. The tissue where the action has to be taken. So this is how they are taking place over here. So motor neuron is the one which is associated with the responding body of the cell. Cell of the body, I'm sorry. So these effectors they are the target tissue, and the neurons which are associated with the these target tissues they are known as the motor neurons. Now these motor neuron and sensory neuron they should interconnect each other. The message should be transferred from sensory to motor neurons also, and that function is actually performed by the another type of neuron which is known as the relay neurons, also known as connector neurons. So this is all about the functional unit of neurons and its structure, function, mechanism and all. And then further we will explain that how these neurons are forming the nervous tissue or the nervous system, and how each part of the nervous system is helping in the process of control and coordination. So till then, thank you so much. We'll meet you soon in the next session. Goodbye.